Welcome to week 11 of ARC 313 Professional Practice 1. In this lecture, we continue our exploration of Republic Act Number 9266, the Architecture Act of 2004, with a focused discussion on the legal definitions and scope of practice that governs the architecture profession in the Philippines. Understanding these legal provisions is not only critical for compliance, but foundational to ethical and competent architecture practice. The definitions embedded in this law shape the identity, authority, and professional obligations of every architect in the country. RA 9266 provides a legal structure that formalizes what it means to practice architecture. While students often associate architectural practice with design or creative work, the law defines it far more broadly. It encompasses a wide spectrum of services, from initial planning and conceptual design to supervision of construction to post-occupancy evaluations. The law recognizes architecture as a service to the public and insists on regulatory mechanisms to protect life, health, property, and public welfare. In short, architecture under RA 9266 is not just a profession, it is a legal responsibility. The reason for this legal emphasis is simple. Architectural decisions have lasting consequences. Poorly designed or unregulated buildings pose risks not only in terms of structural failure, but in issues such as fire safety, accessibility, sanitation, and disaster resilience. Because the built environment has such a profound impact on society, the law mandates that only qualified individuals, those who are duly registered and licensed by the Professional Regulation Commission, may carry out architectural services as defined in the Act. In legal terms, RA 9266 draws a line between those who are authorized to practice and those who are not. This is a core principle of any professional regulatory law. It's not merely about rewarding those who have passed board exams, but about protecting the public by ensuring that only trained and accountable individuals are allowed to engage in architectural work. The title architect is therefore not a stylistic label. It is a legal designation backed by regulation, licensure, and ethical oversight. This week's lecture will guide you through the key concepts that define the professional limits and responsibilities of an architect. We'll examine the exact wordings of Section 3, which sets out the official definition of the practice of architecture. From there, we will look at what activities are covered by this definition, such as planning, design, and project supervision, and what activities are explicitly outside the architect's legal scope. We'll also look at related provisions from the IRR, or the implementing rules and regulations that provide further clarification. Another critical issue we will address is the distinction between architectural and engineering work. Over the years, there has been significant overlap and at times conflict between these professions. RA 9266 was created in part to clarify these boundaries, ensuring that each profession operates within its own domain. Guided by its respective laws and ethical standards, this distinction is not only a matter of academic curiosity, it affects licensure, job responsibilities, project management, and legal accountability on real projects. As we move through the slides, keep in mind that RA 966 is not just a historical document, it is a living law that affects every stage of your future career. From the moment you engage in a student design competition, accept an internship, or draft your first working drawing, you are participating in a professional culture defined by legal boundaries and expectations. This lecture is your opportunity to see the law not as a barrier but as a framework that enables ethical, competent, and respected architectural practice. Finally, as architecture students, your understanding of the legal definitions and scope of your profession is not optional, it's essential. The law is part of your toolkit, just like your design software or drawing instruments. Knowing that you are legally permitted to do and what you must refrain from doing is key to building a responsible and sustainable career. This lecture will help you internalize the legal knowledge and see how it translates into everyday decisions, project roles, and future responsibilities. Okay, so this lecture aims to equip students with a legally grounded understanding of the architectural profession as defined under Republic Act Number 9266. As aspiring professionals, it is vital to understand not only what services you're expected to provide, but also what responsibilities and legal limitations accompany those services. This is not merely about knowing what architecture is, but about understanding what architecture is legally allowed to do in the context of the built environment and public welfare. The first objective is to enable students to comprehend the legal definition of the practice of architecture as stated in Section 3 of RA 9266. This includes an in-depth look at what activities are considered part of the professional architectural services such as planning, design, consultation, construction supervision, and more. These services are not arbitrary, they are codified in law and serve as the benchmarks for determining who may legally practice. Secondly, students will be able to identify the categories of services that fall under the exclusive jurisdiction of registered and licensed architects. These include architectural documents that must be signed and sealed, project proposals, contract administration, and site supervision, among others. Knowing which services are exclusive to architects helps clarify your professional role and protect your legal boundaries. The third learning outcome is for students to differentiate architectural practice from that of allied professionals, particularly civil engineers. Many legal and jurisdictional conflicts in the Philippines arise from unclear boundaries between these two professions. RA 9266 seeks to settle these disputes by formally distinguishing which tasks belong to each discipline. This clarity is vital for collaboration and avoiding future legal complications in practice. Fourth, students will explore the relationship between teaching architecture and legal practice. Many may not realize that teaching core architecture subjects is considered part of the practice of architecture under RA 9266. This has implications for career paths in the academe, faculty qualifications, and the standards required to mentor the next generation of professionals. Students will also examine design-build services and foreign participation in architectural practice. Understanding the legal conditions under which these services can be offered helps prevent violations of law and build confidence in navigating collaborative or multidisciplinary project environments. These topics are highly relevant given the globalization of professional practice and emerging models like integrated project delivery or IPD. Finally, students will be asked to reflect on their own role as future professionals. How does your knowledge of legal scope affect your responsibilities as an intern, designer, or educator? What happens when the scope of practice is violated? By addressing these questions, the lecture encourages critical thinking about the real-world consequences of legal frameworks in architecture. Throughout the lecture, you are encouraged to approach each legal concept with the same attention to detail as a construction drawing. Legal precision is just as important as design precision. Understanding the law at this stage of your education ensures that you develop into not just skilled designers, but also competent licensed professionals with a firm grasp of your legal and ethical responsibilities. So the practice of architecture in the Philippines is strictly governed by RA 9266, also known as the Architecture Act of 2004. The law was enacted to modernize and protect the profession, and Section 3 provides its cornerstone definition. The practice of architecture refers to the act of planning, architectural designing, structural conceptualization, consultation, specifications, and supervision of the construction, enlargement, or alteration of a building or group of buildings. This legal framework clarifies that architecture is not merely a creative or design-based field, it is a regulated profession that holds public interest responsibilities. This legal definition is crucial because it delineates the scope of what only RLAs can do. It goes beyond aesthetics or conceptual visualization and includes the full range of technical, managerial, and regulatory processes involved in the built environment. This section mandates that any person offering or performing architectural services without appropriate license is committing a violation of the law. Thus, the definition not only describes the professional domain, but also identifies who may lawfully engage in it. Included in the definition is the act of signing and sealing architectural documents. Under RE 9266, only RLAs have the authority to sign and seal plans, specifications, and other contract documents. These signatures serve as a legal certification that the content complies with the National Building Code and all other related regulations. Building officials under this law are prohibited from accepting or approving documents that are not duly signed and sealed by a registered and licensed architect or RLA, making this provision a powerful regulatory tool for ensuring compliance and professional accountability. Section 3 also expands the scope of architecture to include physical planning, programming of building projects, and even the teaching of professional subjects in architecture schools. This shows the law treats the profession holistically. Architecture is not limited to building design but extends into pedagogy, research, and professional mentorship. Those involved in teaching course architecture subjects must themselves be RLAs, acknowledging that educational delivery is a form of professional practice with legal responsibilities. A unique component of RA 9266 is the inclusion of architectural interiors, site planning, and environmental planning when performed by RLAs as part of the architectural scope. This allows for a more integrated approach to the built environment and gives Filipino architects the flexibility to practice across related domains, provided they possess the competency and legal qualifications. It also protects the profession from being diminished or encroached upon by others offering overlapping services. Without proper regulation or licensure, In this legal context, architecture is no longer viewed as an isolated act of drawing plans. It is a coordinated set of actions that contribute to public health, safety, comfort, and the general welfare. This is especially important in the Philippine setting, where urbanization, environmental changes, and social housing issues demand architects who understand not just design, but law, governance, and community impact. Thus, Section 3 serves as both a definition and a declaration of duty. Furthermore, the legal text reflects an intention to standardize professional services under a uniform national policy. It protects the public from unscrupulous individuals who may misrepresent themselves as professionals. It also upholds the dignity and credibility of the architectural profession by ensuring that those engaged in it are duly vetted for licensure, education, and continuous professional development. In effect, Section 3 is not just a gatekeeper, it's a protector of both public interest and professional standards. To fully appreciate the implications of this definition, students must understand that legal definitions have practical consequences. Violations of this scope, such as allowing unlicensed persons to practice or neglecting the duties attached to architectural signatures, can lead to administrative sanctions, civil liability, and even criminal penalties. As future professionals, students must recognize that the practice of architecture is both a right and a legal responsibility anchored not only in design skill but also in law. RA 9266 outlines an expansive and clearly defined scope of architectural practice. The law considers architecture a professional service that impacts not just the physical structures we inhabit, but the systems, communities, and environments we operate within. Section 3 of the law and its implementing rules and regulations describe these services in detail, covering design, planning, programming, and technical documentation, among others. Among the primary components of this scope are the planning of architectural design of buildings and their environments. This includes the conceptualization and development of spaces to meet aesthetic functional, safety, and legal requirements. Architects must integrate multiple disciplines into their design, from sustainability to accessibility, while ensuring that their work adheres to the building code, zoning laws, and RA 9266 itself. Another essential aspect is consultation. Architects often serve as advisors in both public and private projects, helping clients make informed decisions about site selection, project feasibility, or design alternatives. This advisory role must be grounded on both technical expertise and legal understanding. When architects provide consultation services, they are still acting under the regulatory purview of RA 9266, or the Architecture Act of 2004. Construction supervision and contract administration are also core to architectural scope. This involves monitoring a project's implementation to ensure that it conforms to the design intent, approved plans, and all legal requirements. Unlike construction management, which can be handled by project managers or engineers, construction supervision tied to design compliance is an architect's legal responsibility. Programming services such as determining spatial requirements, establishing design goals, and analyzing site conditions are considered legal professional tasks. These activities often precede actual design work and form the basis of a project's architectural direction. Failure to perform these tasks thoroughly and legally can result in violations of professional practice standards. Architectural interior design and urban design, when performed by architects, can fall under this scope. These practices must adhere to the same ethical and legal principles as conventional building design. For instance, designing an interior space that does not comply with accessibility codes, such as BP 344, would still result in professional liability. Additionally, the preparation of technical documents, drawings, specifications, bill of materials, forms the backbone of project execution. These documents are not just design representations, they are binding legal instruments that determine accountability during construction. Only registered architects may affix their signature and seal to these documents. According to RA 9266, overall, the scope of practice defined by RA 9266 is comprehensive and multidisciplinary, but it's also exclusive. Only those who are registered and licensed may perform these services under the protection and enforcement of the law. This ensures public trust in the profession and prevents unauthorized or incompetent individuals from jeopardizing lives, properties, and investments. So planning and design are perhaps the most visible aspects of architecture, but under RE 9266, they are also tightly regulated. This includes spatial planning, schematic design, design development, and the creation of working drawings. While creativity is central to these activities, so is technical accuracy and legal compliance. Architectural planning is not just aesthetics, it involves zoning regulations, fire safety laws, energy codes, and other standards. RA 9266 mandates that architects must ensure that their planning decisions align with national and local legal requirement. A failure in planning, such as ignoring easements or right-of-way issues, may result in both legal penalties and loss of professional credibility. Design services also include coordination with structural, mechanical, electrical, and sanitary engineers. RA 9266 acknowledges that while architects are design leaders, collaboration with other professionals is essential. However, architects remain accountable for the overall design coherence and legal conformity of the architectural aspects of the project. Construction supervision is a vital part of legal architectural practice. Unlike general contractors or site engineers, architects must ensure that the physical construction reflects the original design intent and complies with legal documents. This supervisory role is not optional. It is a legal responsibility that must be upheld to ensure building safety and design integrity. Contract administration is another area covered by RA 9266. Architects assist clients in interpreting contract provisions, evaluating contractor proposals, and verifying project progress. These tasks require a deep understanding of both legal and technical aspects of construction, making them a specialized service only licensed architects may offer. Post-occupancy services such as building audits, performance reviews, or renovation planning are extensions of design services and are considered lawful under RE 9266. These services ensure that the building continues to perform according to the original legal and functional parameters. Architectural management, including practice operations and client communications, is also part of the legal responsibilities outlined in the law. Even when tasks are administrative, like fee proposals or project scheduling, they carry legal weight and must adhere to PRBOA standards, IAPOA codes of conduct, and RA 9266 provisions. Collectively, these areas of planning, design, supervision, and management show that architectural practice is not fragmented or optional. Under RA 9266, they are unified and regulated components of a professional role that must be carried out in the public interest under licensure and with full legal accountability. So one of the most critical aspects of architectural practice under IR 9266 is the exclusive authority to prepare, design, and seal architectural documents. Section 20 of the law strictly mandates that all architectural plans, designs, drawings, specifications, and other related documents must be prepared, signed, and sealed only by a registered and licensed architect. This provision underscores the legal identity of architectural documents as official, binding, and enforceable public instruments. These documents are not mere visual representations. They carry legal weight and must meet regulatory standards for them to be processed by building officials. So one of the primary reasons for the enactment of RA 9266 was to clarify the distinction between architecture and engineering in the Philippines. For decades, overlapping practices and professional disputes have caused confusion and conflict at the regulatory, industry, and even academic levels. RA 9266, particularly in Section 20 and related provisions, draws a legal boundary between the work that can be performed by architects and that which falls under the domain of civil or structural engineers. Understanding these distinctions is crucial for architectural students, especially as future collaborators, project leaders, or licensed professionals. The law asserts that only registered and licensed architects may prepare, sign, and seal architectural documents. This explicitly includes civil engineers or other professionals from producing such documents, even if they have technical skills in drafting or construction. The law emphasizes that architectural work involves a specialized combination of creative, technical, legal, and ethical elements that require regulation by the Professional Regulatory Board of Architecture. This ensures that architectural planning, spatial design, and aesthetics are treated not as technical side products, but as the central professional responsibility of architects. Conversely, engineers under RA 544 are authorized to handle structural calculations, reinforcement schedules, and other load-bearing systems of buildings. Their domain is the physical and mathematical integrity of structures, not the architectural spatial planning of buildings. RA 9266 respects this role but demand that civil engineers remain within their professional scope, just as architects must not practice engineering. So beyond traditional building design, the practice of architecture under RE 9266 legally includes several specialized domains such as architectural interior, site planning, and urban design. These practice areas are not merely add-ons, they are formally recognized in the law and its implementing rules and regulations as legitimate and essential parts of architectural practice when performed by an RLA or registered and licensed architect. This expanded legal scope empowers architects to offer more integrated and holistic design services while remaining within the bounds of professional regulation. Architectural interiors refer to the professional service of planning, designing, and detailing interior spaces within a building. This includes decisions about spatial layout, circulation, light materials, finishes, and furnishings, all designed to meet the client's functional, aesthetic, and legal requirements. RE 9266 recognizes that interior space planning is not merely decorative, it is spatial design with implications for accessibility, fire safety, and building code compliance. Architect practicing in this area must still apply legal knowledge, especially with reference to laws like BP 344, RE 9514, or PD 1096. The key legal distinction is that architectural interiors under RE 9266 are not the same as interior decoration. While the latter may focus on aesthetics or styling, the former requires formal architectural planning which can affect partitioning, life safety, HVAC layout, lighting compliance, and coordination with engineering systems. Only RLAs are authorized to submit such interior plans to building officials, and these documents must also be signed and sealed, just like full architectural plans. Interior design becomes architectural when it impacts code compliance and building function. Site planning also is another recognized architectural service which involves the layout of buildings, roads, open spaces, landscaping, and utilities within a property. RE 9266 includes site planning within the architect scope, particularly when it pertains to the spatial organization of a development in response to natural site features, environmental constraints, and regulatory codes such as zoning ordinances and setback rules. So one of the less commonly discussed but legally significant provisions in RE 9266 is the inclusion of teaching architectural subjects as a legitimate form of professional practice. So Section 3 of the law explicitly states that teaching professional subjects in architecture schools, those included in the licensure exam syllabus, is considered part of the practice of architecture. This reflects the law's recognition that the preparation of future architects is not just an academic pursuit, but a regulated professional service with public interest implications. This provision has clear consequences for educational institutions, students, and faculty. In accordance with the implementing rules of R 9266, individuals who are not registered licensed architects are prohibited from teaching subjects that are part of the licensure examination scope. So, while RE 9266 establishes a broad and well-defined scope for architectural practice, it also acknowledges that not all activities related to building design, construction, and development fall exclusively within the legal domain of architects. Understanding these exceptions is crucial because it delineates where professional boundaries lie and helps prevent the unauthorized assumption of tasks that are either outside the law or reserved for other professions. These legal boundaries are essential for preserving ethical conduct, professional collaboration, and public protection. One notable exception is design and construction of simple structures or buildings of minimal complexity and value. According to National Building Code, PD 1096, structures below a certain floor area or cost threshold may be exempt from requiring full architectural services. For instance, small rural homes or temporary shelters might not legally necessitate the involvement of an architect, though it's still advisable. These exemptions are designed to balance professional regulation with practical realities, especially in low-income or emergency situations. Additionally, certain interior decoration or furnishing activities that do not involve spatial planning, building code interpretation, or fixed installations may be performed by interior decorators or other specialists without violating RA 9266. However, when the task involves alterations to circulations, egress routes, accessibility features, or any fixed installations such as walls and ceilings, it transitions into architectural interior work, at which point the services of an RLA are required by law. The distinction between interior design and architectural interiors must be understood clearly to avoid scope, creep, or legal liability. tasks such as quantity surveying, cost estimation, and project management may fall within the realm of allied professionals, depending on how these services are delivered. For example, a project manager who handles scheduling and procurement but does not engage in spatial design or design supervision is not practicing architecture. However, when these managerial tasks intersect with architectural decision-making, then legal oversight from a licensed architect is necessary. Collaboration is welcome, but role definitions must remain clear and contractual scopes must reflect legal limits. The engineering profession also have clearly demarcated scopes under RA 544 and its amendments. Civil engineers are authorized to design and sign off on structural systems but are legally prohibited from signing architectural drawings or offering architectural services. Similarly, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, and sanitary engineers each have their own codes and regulatory laws. RA 9266 upholds the separation of the disciplines by defining what only architects may do. In doing so, it fosters accountability while allowing for healthy interdisciplinary cooperation. Another important legal boundary exists in the area of non-licensed practice. Students, interns, or unlicensed individuals working in firms must always operate under the supervision of an architect. They may assist in the preparation of drawings or documents, but they never independently offer architectural services, nor may they sign or sell any project output. Any attempt to present oneself as a practicing architect without proper licensure is a direct violation of RA 966 and may result in criminal prosecution and penalties. Even within architecture, there are voluntary roles or community-based activities that may not be considered formal architectural practice. So Section 37 or 9266 formally recognizes that architects may engage in design bid services, a project delivery method in which the same party provides both design and construction services under a single contract. This provision enables architects to offer more integrated and streamlined services, allowing for better coordination between the planning and implementation phases of a project. However, this opportunity comes with stringent legal conditions and ethical responsibilities that must be fully understood to avoid violations and conflicts of interest. This is attractive to clients because it minimizes communication errors, reduces the delivery time, and can be more cost-effective. Moreover, the architect in a design-build capacity must ensure that their role as a designer does not compromise their integrity as a builder. RA 966 emphasizes that architects must not compete for projects through unprofessional methods such as offering free services or undercutting standard professional fees set by the standards of professional practice. A key legal requirement is that the foreign architect must work in collaboration with a Filipino counterpart who is a PRC registered and licensed architect. This collaboration must be formalized through a written agreement, and the Filipino counterpart is required to be professionally and financially responsible for the project alongside the foreign architect. The joint responsibility provision ensures that local standards, laws, and ethical guidelines are upheld even when international expertise is brought in. Moreover, the foreign architect must prove that they possess exceptional qualifications and are internationally acknowledged in a specific field of architectural specialization. This prevents the entry of foreign practitioners who are not demonstrably more qualified than Filipino architects. The law thereby avoids undermining the local profession or promoting the outsourcing of local jobs and opportunities to foreign nationals. This qualification clause is a legal safeguard for Filipino professionals and local architectural practice. The special permit is project-specific and time-bound. It is granted only for the duration of the specific project stated in the application and is non-transferable. The foreign architect must also comply with all applicable laws such as the NBC, accessibility law, and all other environmental and safety regulations. Non-compliance may result in the immediate revocation of the permit and possible legal sanctions, including bans on future participations in future Philippine projects. The role of the PRBOA. So RA 9266 is not merely a declarative or aspirational document. It is an enforceable legal statute backed by administrative, civil, and criminal provisions. The enforcement of this law is entrusted primarily to the Professional Regulatory Board of Architecture, PRBOA, under the supervision of the PRC, a Professional Regulation Commission. These agencies are mandated to oversee compliance with licensure requirements, ensure ethical practice, and investigate complaints or violations. The law gives these bodies strong regulatory powers, including the ability to suspend or revoke licenses and to initiate legal proceedings. Violations of RA 9266 are taken seriously because they have implications for public safety, consumer protection, and professional integrity. Among the most common offenses are practicing architecture without a valid PRC license, signing or sealing documents without proper authority, misrepresenting oneself as an architect, allowing one's seal to be used by others, and unauthorized advertising. Each of these actions undermine the credibility of the profession and is subject to legal penalties such as fines, license suspension, and criminal prosecution. Another significant violation is aiding or abetting the unauthorized practice of architecture. For instance, if a licensed architect allows an unlicensed person such as a draftsman or student to independently design and submit documents under the architect's name, both parties may be held liable. Similarly, contractors, developers, or building officials who accept and act upon unsigned or fraudulently signed architectural documents may also be subject to administrative and legal action. This reflects the law's broad reach in holding all participants in the building process accountable. The legal remedies provided by RA 9266 include administrative actions before the PRBOA, which can impose sanctions ranging from reprimands to the revocation of a professional license. In more serious cases, especially those involving fraud or harm to the public, civil and criminal cases may be filed in regular courts. Penalties under the law can include imprisonment of up to 6 years, fines of up to 200,000 or both, depending on the severity and nature of the offense. These legal measures are not symbolic, they are applied in practice. The law also recognizes the rights of architects to seek legal recourse against parties who infringe upon their professional domain. This includes the unauthorized use of plans, copyright violations, unfair competitions, and defamation. The law empowers architects to defend the value of their intellectual and professional work through judicial and administrative mechanisms. These rights affirm the professional dignity of architects and provide a clear pathway to redress when their legal boundaries are violated. PRBOA also plays a preventive role by issuing advisories, resolutions, and opinions to clarify ambiguous cases or enforcing emerging standards. So the enforcement and governance of RE 9266 are made possible through the coordinated work of two vital institutions. We have the PRC and the PRBOA. These bodies are the custodians of architectural regulation in the Philippines. While the PRC oversees more than 40 regulated professions, the PRBOA is a specialized autonomous body under its supervision, tasked specifically with regulating the practice of architecture. Together, they uphold the standards of competency, ethics, and legal compliance that define the professional practice of architects. The PRBOA is composed of 3 members, licensed architects with at least 10 years of continuous practice, teaching, or service to the profession. These members are appointed by the President of the Philippines from a shortlist submitted by the IAPOA. The board's role is not ceremonial. It is empowered by law to issue rules, adjudicate complaints, impose sanctions, interpret the scope of architectural practice, and recommend legislative improvements. This is essentially the legal and moral compass of the architectural profession in the country. So, one of the most significant responsibilities of the PRBOA is to enforce the provisions of RA 9266 and its IRR. This includes evaluating applications for licensure, overseeing the conduct of the licensure examination, and maintaining the registry of licensed architects. The PRBOA also evaluates applications for foreign architects seeking temporary permits and is responsible for investigating violations or unethical behavior. The board's rulings carry the force of law and are enforceable through the PRC, and if necessary, through the regular courts. The PRBOA also serves as the gatekeeper of professional standards. It develops the syllabus for licensure exams, formulates the SPP or Standards of Professional Practice, and issues resolutions that clarify ambiguous legal or ethical issues. These policies ensure consistency in how the profession is understood and practiced nationwide. For students, the impact of the board's work is direct. You are educated under the standards it set. You will be examined by the content it defines, and your future work will be judged against its rulings. So for the summary and reflection, the architectural profession is not defined solely by artistic vision or technical ability. It is also defined in no uncertain terms by legal responsibility. RA 9266 affirms that architecture in the Philippines is a regulated profession with defined limits, exclusive privileges, and enforceable duties. Throughout this lecture, we explored the law's detailed provisions that establish what architects may not do, who may, who may claim the professional title, and how the title must be exercised in service of the public interest. This legal identity is not optional, it is the foundation on which your future career will stand. We began by examining the scope of practice, which includes planning, design, construction, supervision, and consultation. These services are not simply conventional, they are protected and defined by law. The architectural seal and signature are instruments of accountability, and only registered and licensed architects may affix them. To do otherwise is to violate RA 9266 and expose oneself to disciplinary and criminal sanctions. As students, understanding this scope is your first step towards legal and ethical competence. We also explored specific practice areas such as architectural interiors, site planning, urban design, and teaching. These functions expand the reach of architecture into public space, social impact, and institutional development. Importantly, they remain under the umbrella of legal responsibility. When you plan a park, design a classroom, or teach design ethics, you're acting with a legal framework that requires you to be licensed, accountable, and continually updated. Okay, so see you next week, class. You can view this lecture in our Padlet link. And if you have further questions, clarification, we could meet on face-to-face on class. Okay, good luck.